Thanks to Chris for the crisp um, report to me about our feedback on the first IA. So I have forwarded to the administration. Let's move on as I have promised.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, let's concentrate on network address translation. The necessity for network address translation is very simple. Yesterday I have spoken to you about the private IP addresses, right? So there are set of IP addresses which are called as private IP addresses, and we have seen them available in class A, in class B, and class C as well, right? Certain range of IP address. So the important characteristic of these private IP addresses is that the packet which are having this IP addresses cannot be routed over internet. In other words, it cannot travel over the internet in detail. You cannot connect with the actual server. Suppose you want to connect with the Gmail server, right? And you wanted to use this private IP, you will not be able to connect with the Gmail server. So what is the necessity of private IP then? All right, we also saw the reason yesterday. The primary reason for the usage of private IP addresses is to withstand or to manage the IP address depletion. All right, IPv4 addresses were depleting very fast, and in order to counter that or counter attack that, we have used IPv4 private IP addresses. So what does it mean? Logic is very simple. You are within Carnia. When you are in Carnia, if you ever attempted to find out your IP address, interestingly, you would have noticed that you all had private IP addresses. Specifically, all the Wi-Fi addresses in Carnia were configured to have 10 dot series. Okay, if you remember, that would be great. All right, all are 10 dot series. 10 dot series comes under private IP address. Were you able to access the internet? Yes, you were able to access the internet. But just now I have said, if you got the private IP address, you cannot access the internet. So why there is a contradiction, right? So that's the reason for this topic. So let's get into that. We have a concept of network address translation. Something very similar to that, relative to that, is your port address translation, which we are not going to see in detail, but we'll have in a peripheral level knowledge on what is a port address translation. So let's get into that. This is a perfect diagram or the graphics which helps us to understand what exactly happens in network address translation. On the right hand side, probably I'll open the highlighter here. Not highlighter, I'm sorry, I'll go for laser pointer. Yeah, right. So you could see on the right hand side, there are three IP addresses, right? Three machines which are having IP addresses 10001, 10002, and 10003. All these three are in the private address space. And it also is connected with the router, and the router's default gateway is also configured with same network address because they all belong to the same network, right? So it's going to be 10004. All right. Now, where does this port address, or I'm sorry, the network address translation comes into come into picture, right? Now, as we have spoken yesterday and today, any packet with 10.004 or generally having private IP address cannot be routed over internet. So, what can be done? Simple solution is, you can see on the left hand side bottom, all datagrams leaving the local network. This is your local area network, maybe your university network or sometimes home network having more than one PC, have same single source NAT IP address 138.76.29.7 and different source port numbers, right? Which means this router has got two interfaces at present. One is part of your local area network, the other is part of your internet. All right, so connected with other ISPs and other stuff. So they are having the IP address which is a public IP. Could you see that this is a class B IP? But in class B IP you got 172.16 series. All right, so that is the part of the private IP address. So you got 138, it is a public IP. So this router has one public IP, but it is connected with the local area network, which is having n number of machines having the private IP addresses. So what happens? Whatever packets which are traveling from the local area network to the internet, something has to be done by the router, that is called network address translation, where the source IP, in case take the example of this machine having 10001 wants to send a packet to the internet, it sends across, right? At this place, this router changes the source IP address from 10.0.0.1 to 138.76.29.7. So what happens? The packet is created newly in the router where the source IP address is changed. Source IP address becomes 138.76.29.7, which is a private IP. Now the packet has become eligible to travel over internet. Have you got the logic? This is called your network address translation. I have a sore throat, so please bear with me. All right. So hope you will accept me. All right. So all these datagrams which are coming from the local area network to the internet have to be processed at the router for two reasons here. One is to find the route, of course. The second one is to change the source IP address into 138.76.29.7 in this case. Okay. Any public IP which is configured here must become the source IP for all the packets. Obviously, once the packets are coming back, all right, all these packets, the IP address have to be changed. All right, so very simple. Have a table like structure. All right, all 10.0.0.1 will have one identification, and you also have noted what is the source IP you have put, what is the destination IP. So once the packets are coming from the other side, by looking at the source IP, you can find to which correct local machine the packet has to be forwarded. All right, that is also done by your network address translation. So what are this? The motivation is the local area network is using just one public IP as far as the internet is concerned. So from the outside, from the internet, if somebody looks at you, for them only one IP will be visible. A simple example of the trouble which you may be facing is when you are trying to book the ticket, train ticket in IRCTC. All right, we have faced this trouble earlier from Karna University network. Once you start booking, sometimes early morning 8 o'clock when they open the window, especially on the Tatkal booking or some when you have got a mad rush during that time, you will immediately get a pop-up message on the screen that this IP is already used for booking two tickets. You may be wondering, sir, I just opened my laptop, but how can this happen? Please remember, all your machine and all your friends' machine, everything will have only one public IP from the outside world. So for them, only that public IP will be visible. All your IPs are hidden. All right. So there are multiple advantages. One is you could see the first point. The range of IP addresses are not needed from ISP. Okay. So ISP needs to give you only one IP, for instance, but you can connect thousands of machines inside it. You got the logic, all right? So one IP address is sufficient to manage all the devices in your local area network, all right? And the second advantage for the network administrator is, for administrative reason, you wanted to change this set of IP addresses from 10.0 range to, you wanted to convert into, or you wanted to change it to class C IP address, maybe 190 to 168 series, you can do that. You need not do anything with the ISPs, or you need not inform even outside the network, that is the internet. All right, you can do it because the router takes care of the mapping. All right, third one, you can change the ISP without changing any of these ISP. That's simple. All right, so you want to get into Airtel, you want to get into VSNL or BSNL, Reliance, you can do that without harming anything. All you need to do is change your public IP. All your internal structure need not go through any modification. And finally, devices inside cannot be addressable. The reason is, if somebody says 10.1.1.1, that specific machine may be existing in more than one place in the internet. How is it possible? Because all your machines should have the unique IP. Yes, that's the advantage of having private IP, because they cannot be routed over internet. More than one device in the internet can have same private IP. As I said yesterday, you got URK20CS1001 could be possibly the register number of another person in another university. There is a possibility. All right, so that's the logic. So it's a private address space. It cannot be used outside. So using your register number, you cannot get into any government recommendation XYZ. You want to go to ration card, a separate number. All right, you want to go for your traffic driving license or passport, they're all different number. Your register number cannot be used to use you to denote you uniquely. All right, so that's the logic there. Moving on. So how is it implemented? We'll go quickly. There are three things. All right. First one, when you have an outgoing datagram, which means you are the router, assume that you are the router, you can assume yourself as the router, you are connected with the internet in front of you, and you have got maybe 100 of machines connected internally, all right, in the local area network. So when somebody sends a datagram, what are you supposed to do? You are supposed to change or the replace the IP address. Okay, the source IP is not routable, so you change the IP address, I'm sorry, and also the port number. Why should you change the port number? More than one machine in the internal may use the same port number, but the router has to identify, the NAT router has to identify to which port number it has to be sent correctly, so it changes the port number as well. Otherwise it is not going to be unique, there will be duplicate. Hope you could understand. All right, now what happens, it goes to the server, server accepts it, it prepares the packet response message having its own IP as the source IP, the NAT IP as the destination IP, it is sent. Step one. What happens next? In your NAT router, you got the response, but you should remember who is mapped to whom. Okay, you should have a table structure, right? And every source IP port number is matched or is mapped with another source IP and port number. Probably the source IP is same because it's all NAT IP address, right? And then once it comes back, you look at the table. Okay, this was mapped with him. All right, I'll do the reverse of mapping. Simple. Hope you get it. And then once you packets are coming inside from the external, you do the reverse of first one. Okay, all your NATed IP and the port numbers are changed to original so that the packets can be routed internally. All right, so hope I have made it clear to you what happens in the network address translation. It looks very simple. All right, doesn't it? Is it acceptable? There are some issues, but we'll see that. So this is an example. What happens? You have got your set of machines here. All right, there is a packet from 10001. It is sent to 128.119.40.186, which is a public IP, port number 80. So it talks. It tries to talk to a web server, right? So this is your source. This is the destination. All right. What happens next? The second one, the source IP is changed to 138.76.29.7, and it goes to a new port number. Okay, and the destination remains same. Remember, right? So look at that 128, 119, 40, 186. The same thing is used. Destination remains same. All right. Now it goes to the server. Server works on that, responds to the packet. What happens? It is receiving, source and destinations are swapped. Okay, you could see that this is the packet which is sent, this is the packet which you got a response as the response, and you can see source and destinations are swapped. Now once it comes to the NATed router has to change it back. All right, something similar to this. Okay, so he is almost working like a representative. Look at your class representative logic. You got 60 of the students in your class, got one person to represent in case he wants to talk to others. Okay, he comes, talks on behalf of all of you, gets the data, then distributes across. All right, suppose your friend is going to city, Coimbatore city, when you are in Karunya. I wanted to buy something, maybe a mouse pad or XYZ that you want to buy, maybe a thumb drive, and you may tell him, can you please get a thumb drive? And a friend may say, can you get a lock and key because I lost the key? Can you buy toothpaste? Okay, he goes, purchases everything, comes back and distributes. All right, this is what very similar to the NAT. What's that happening? Is it? Do we have some more data? Yes, it's a 16-bit port number field NAT. So you can go for 65,535. All right, that is 60,000 connection with a single LAN site. That's okay. That's all positive side, but there is also something negative. What is that? NAT is little bit controversial. Why is it controversial? Remember, we have been telling that routers are running only up to the network layer. All right, so they don't know who is connected with whom. That's what we have been telling. But what happens here? You look at the P2P application, or you look at your LAN games. When you are trying to connect to the internet, when your router is a NAT router, what happens? Your IP is visible. All right, the number is taken, changed, and it is sent. So you don't have an end-to-end correspondence. For instance, the P2P application. All right, the router comes in between and place. So this actually violates the transport layer's end-to-end argument. All right, and all right, of course, a solution is given, but NAT is not the permanent solution. You should go for IPv6. That's true, but how can we solve it at present? All right, you look at one of the troubles here. The client wants to connect to server with 10.0.0.1. Okay, the server address is 10.0.0.1. Hope you understand the logic. Assume that you have got a cornea local area, local server, and which needs to be contacted by someone who is outside the network, but you got the private IP packet cannot be routed over internet. How can this be solved? Okay, so this can be solved by few of the options. One option is you have to statically configure the NAT to forward the incoming connection. So when an incoming connection is coming with port number 80, for instance, okay, port number 25,000 or 40,000, for instance, the NAT router will automatically forward the packet to the server. It's not going to forward to anyone else. This is one of the solutions. All right. There is second solution. It is on the screen, but I want you guys to look at that. And in Thursday's class, I will call one of you randomly to explain about this solution too. You can take a screenshot. You can look at what is the second, how do we solve the problem with NAT traversal. So I stay for another 10 seconds on the screen. All right, so this is for you as a homework or assignment. Please prepare what is UPnP and IGD. Read about that and then you come back so that we can have discussion. All right, so we'll go to the third one. The third one is something like a relaying. All right, you guys are very good in bypassing the firewall, right? So you can have your VPN or you can have some, yeah, tunneling to talk to somebody else, where the particular URL or particular website is blocked in Caronia, but you can bypass the firewall. You guys know better than me. All right, you are experiencing the every day. Something similar to that. That is called relaying. All right, so here also I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but all right, you got a person who is able to relay. So you got the client Skype and another Skype somewhere which is inside the NAT. Okay, which means it will have the private IP address. How are you able to connect? You got another person like a brokering, all right, or coordinator who is called relaying, and he is able to connect you guys. All right, so this is one of the solutions. This is the third solution when you talk about the NAT traversal problem, right? Quickly, I'll see what's the time because I don't have the clock running. Okay, I got another some more time. Moving on, we'll talk something about the Internet Control Message Protocol, ICMP. That's the second topic which I intended to talk to you today. ICMP is often called as Layer 2.5 protocol. All right, so it is somewhere between layer 2 and 3, so we call this layer 2.5 protocol, but generally it is available in layer 3. It is available in the IP layer, right? So Internet Control Message Protocol, this is a very, very crucial protocol responsible for control messages, right? So as you are going to see in the next screen, right? So let's dwell some time on this screen. Okay, who is using this ICMP? It is used by the devices. Okay, it is used by the end device or it's by the routers. All right, and to communicate some information, not for data transmission to be precise, but for communication, right? So what are this? One of the things is your error reporting. Many a times when you are not connected with the internet, you get an error message, page 404. Okay, 404, page not found. You could have experienced that. All right, so a lot of such messages which are given by the HTTP protocol are carried and it is given to you. It is taken care by the ICMP protocol, right? You also have got something like a echo request, echo reply. For instance, your ping command, your traceroute command, they all use the ICMP messages, right? Um, and ICMP message has got two things. One is type and the code. So the various type and code fields are explained on the right hand side, but I have highlighted few of them. One is echo reply, which means type 0, code 0 is a echo reply message. Okay, which means that should be then echo request. Where do we have? Yes, you got type 8, code 0, right? So let me see whether I can open a packet tracer to explain that. Please allow me. I did not plan it, but we'll see whether ICMP type 8 code 0 and type 0 code 0 works. Please allow me for this packet tracer to open. I'm sorry, my machine is very slow. Please bear with me. Yeah, this is what I used. I think this is fine. I can use it to explain to you the ping command. So this is 192.168.1.129. This is 1.1. So what I do, I go to this message. Parallelly, I go to the simulation. and I go to the edit filter. I see only ICMP. Where is ICMP? Okay, I give only ICMP to be viewed on this screen. Um, so from 1 1, I'm going to ping WhatsApp message 1 129. Okay, so from this, I'm going to give a ping command 1 129, ping 192.168.1 129. Okay, so I let me minimize this. Open this packet. Go to the outbound. Could you see ICMP? Yeah, it is type 8 code 0. Hope you have noticed this. It is type 8 code 0. All right, so please remember it is a echo request. When a echo request message is received by a machine, it is supposed to send with echo reply. Echo reply is type 0 code 0. We'll verify that as well. We'll allow this to go. Okay, I stop here. I open this packet. Router to switch, PC to switch 1. PC to switch 1, I'll open. And outbound should be type 0, code 0. We'll see that. Yes, it is type 0, code 0, because it is a ICMP type 0, code 0, echo reply. Have you noticed this? This is what we are seeing by looking at the screen. Okay, type 8 code 0 is a echo request message generally used by the ping, and you also got the echo reply again used by the ping command, right? So you understood how ICMP is useful. And we also have a host of type message, type and code of ICMP, and another one or two we can see. You have got type 3 code 3 destination port unreachable, and type 11 code 0 TTL expired. Okay, type 11 code 0 TTL expired, type 3 code 3 destination port unreachable. We are going to see when you use the traceroute command. Okay, I may not demonstrate it using the packet tracer. I can do that, but in order to go quickly, I'll explain to you what happens when you go for traceroute. But I told you to learn by yourself. I would be glad if any one of you have learned by yourself how does traceroute work and what is the involvement of ICMP in traceroute. If you knew the answer, I'd be very glad. If not, please listen to this, right? So what exactly happened? So by the meantime, how can I remove this? Okay, I keep it somewhere here. And I also use the laser pointer, right? So what happens? You got a machine here, you got a machine here. Now you wanted to go for a trace route command. What is the use of trace route command? TRACERT. Trace route command helps you to find out the IP addresses of the router's en route to the destination. You know that, right? Perfect. Good. So how does it happen? Don't you you should not be surprised by seeing that it is only ICMP packets, okay, which fetches the routers. What happens initially? This machine sends a ICMP packet with TTL field 1. You know what is the use of TTL? TTL field is used to tell how many hops the packet can travel, right? If the TTL field becomes 0, the packet will be dropped and the source will be intimated by the ICMP packet. All right. Now what happens when you send a packet first? Okay, the TTL field is set to 1. So what will happen? The packet will go here, and this router opens the packet, changes the TTL field to TTL minus 1, which becomes 0. Okay, once it becomes 0, this router will send a response back. Okay, what is that response back? TTL expired. Okay, type 11 code 0 is sent. All right, so type 11 code 0 is sent, and look at the last row. It says ICMP messages include the name of the router and IP addresses. Okay, so name of the router and IP address. Name we are not going to use as of now, but the IP address of the router who sends the type 11 code 0, that is TTL expired, will be received. Now the router understands whether somebody has a question to ask. Shall I proceed? Right. Now the router understands that this packet cannot go anywhere. because the TTL becomes 0. It sends the TTL expired message. So the source machine receives the TTL expired message and looks at the IP address of the router, stores it, and it understands this is the first hop. All right. Hope you get the logic. How can you find the address of second router? Yes, you make the TTL field as 2. Okay, so it goes here, the TTL becomes 1, the packet still goes there, TTL becomes 0. He sends a TTL expired message with its IP address. Now this machine understood or comes to know the second router's IP address. Isn't it very interesting and simple? It was really fascinating for me when I learned it for the first time. All right, so the packets are sent like that, and eventually, at particular point of time, this packet will reach the destination. Okay, reach this mission. So what happens at this place? You have got the third point here. These ICMP packets are sent with unlikely port number. There may not be such service running. Okay, some random number 1300 for instance. Okay, so that is not coming under your well-known port number, right? It's a random port number. So it goes here, the service is not running in this machine, so it sends back a message with the third one, destination port unreachable, type 3 code 3. Hope you are following this story. Isn't it simple story to understand? Hope you are getting this. So 3 3 type 3 code 3 is the destination port unreachable. That message will be sent by this machine. Once it receives the destination port unreachable, this machine understands that this is the destination machine I was searching for. And of course, you have got the IP address of the machine which you are searching for. So these two matches and your trace route function completes. And when the TTL expired first time, IP address, second time IP address, third time IP address, fourth time IP address, fifth time IP address, and then port number expired, does not exist, not reachable IP address, all are taken to give you the answer for your trace route command. Okay, so that is what given. But this trace route packet also is sent 3 times. These ICMP packets are sent 3 times in order to avoid some confusion. Okay, so when does it start? When you get the destination returns the ICMP port unreachable, the source stops it. All right, this is how your trace route is working. I will see whether I can explain to you today if time permits. Right, I can demonstrate it if time permits. Moving on, we'll get into IPv6. Right, so we are not going to get into the detail of IPv6, but I got a very interesting video given by Mr. I'm sorry, Mr. Anand, who is a technical manager at Cisco Networking Academy. I'm searching for the video which he has shared with me, so that I can put it across in the GCR. So those who want to learn more about IPv6, you can rely on your laboratory, and also the video of Mr. Anand. Very informative, very interesting video, which will run for 45 minutes to 50 minutes. All right, so that is worth seeing, and I'll share with you once time permits. Right, so now, what's the motivation behind IPv6? We all know that, all right. Main primary one is that the address space is depleting. You don't have sufficient number of bits in 32 to allocate space. That's the reason we have gone for private IP addresses, right? Now, what happens in the case of IPv6? Okay, we look at the first point. The header length is fixed of 40 bytes. What about IPv4? Header size is not fixed. Okay, minimum is 20 bytes, but you have got options field and also the payload field. Okay, options field is very well the integral part of your IP header. So IPv4 header is not of fixed size. But first point, IPv6 header is fixed. Second one, no fragmentation is allowed. Okay, I would always say that this is a very optimistic approach. I would say that IPv4 is something pessimistic. The reason is, what will happen if the data link layer is not able to handle it? So it always looks at the maximum transfer unit, segments the packet, puts the header. It also adds the ID offset. We learned about this yesterday. That is all included. So it adds little complexity and delay in the processing. Right? What happens in IPv6, boss? I cannot fragment it. If the data link layer cannot handle it, I don't bother. All right. Interestingly, that has worked well because of the current technology. The IPv6 is successful, the reason is your data link layer have been much improved and which will be able to handle the packets which are given by the network layer. All right, so fragmentation is not done. So all those second row, okay, the 16-bit fragmentation ID, flag, and the offset are completely removed from IPv6. Okay, another parameter which you remember is it also includes some security features. All right, and the third point, it includes, it makes some necessary changes to facilitate QoS. Okay, so the quality of service is improved. You know what is quality of service? If you do not know, you can ask me later. I'll explain to what is quality of service. But there are multiple parameters which define the quality of service in the internet. All right. In order to give the promised quality of service, IPv6 is a handy one compared to IPv6. So we'll have a quick look at the IPv6 datagram format. Version is same. We have seen it in IPv4 as well. We have got the version. What else you have got? Okay, you have got a new one called priority. Okay, the priority and the flow label. Okay, these two are important fields to give you to meet the quality of service parameters. Okay, so flow label very similar to urgency. Okay, suppose a packet has to be processed immediately. Assume that there are two machines. Okay, source and destinations are interacting. Source and destination IP are matching for multiple packets. That will be given a specific priority that packets will reach the destination quickly. Something like ambulance is given priority on the road. All right, so that's how we improve the quality of service by the IPv6. All right, and the second one is next header. Next header is very similar to your upper layer protocol in your IPv4. Okay, the third one is your hop limit. Hop limit is TTL. Okay, TTL is still existing with the new name of hop limit. Okay, and again, payload length is something similar to our header length and the packet length in the IPv4, right? And the major difference again is the source IP and the destination IP size are changed. Earlier we got only 32 bits. Now it is 128 bits, right? So 2 power 5 is 32. Okay, what is 128? 2 power 7. Okay, so that's the change which is made when you have got 128 bits. All right, it's huge, and people claim that this IP will not deplete. We don't need to go for IPv7 in order to address the depletion, right? So, and you don't have the options field, that is completely removed. You straight away have the data. Hence, you have got the fixed header size here. What are other changes? As you could see, checksum is completely removed. I told you in the earlier class that checksum is also done by the data link layer by the cyclic redundancy check in the trailer by the frames, and transport layer TCP also does the checksum. So checksum is entirely removed in order to increase the speed. Okay. Second, on options field, as I said, is not included, and instead of ICMP, it also has got ICMP v6. So all the other options fields are allowed but not in as part of header. They are just outside the header. All right, that's about um, IPv4 to IPv6. All right, now the question is, do we have time? Yeah, I have got another 10 minutes, so I'll go for it. So there is something called transition from IPv4 to v6. So what does it mean? Now we understood the advantage of IPv6. Yes, but look at me. Okay, I am using IPv4 for my network. I am the network administrator. I use IPv4 for my internet, for my institutional network or organizational network. Do I get access to internet? Yes. Do I have I got speed? Yes. Whether all the machines are having IP address? Yes. Now I can ask a question: why should I switch to IPv6? All right, because my IPv4 is comfortable. I'm comfortable with IPv4. Everything is fine. No delay, no jitter. Things are perfect. Then there is no reason that why should I improve or move toward IPv6? What's the advantage? All right, so this will be the mindset of people. So you cannot say that move to IPv6 from today. No, you cannot do that. Okay, I will always claim I'm comfortable with IPv4. So what shall we do? The problem is, okay, IPv6 implementation is also very much necessary. Hence, people have started adopting IPv6. Now, organization A has got IPv6, organization B has got IPv4. So how can I connect these two? So does that, because everything is different. The header structure is different. The checksum is not there. TTL field place is changed. Options field is completely removed. The size of the IP becomes 128. Earlier it was 32. What shall I do? How can they talk to each other? Because they are not going to talk to each other. All right. This is the problem. And then how are you going to do that transition? Okay. One of the topics I will explain to you. The other one is dual stack, which I leave to you as the homework, which I haven't included as part of our discussion. One of them is tunneling. Okay, sir, I'll tell you the example of tunneling. You will easily get it. Suppose I have got a bike here in my native place, all right, and I want to use this bike in Karunya now. Okay, I'm talking about the faculty. Obviously, you are not permitted officially to use the bikes. All right. So this two-wheeler I wanted to use in Karunya, but I'm not willing to ride it over the 600 kilometers to reach Karunya. All right. So, what shall I do? I don't want to ride because my body condition will not support me. I cannot ride it, and I also do not want to give the bike to someone else. What shall I do? Simple. Go for a parcel service. Okay. Go for a KPN parcel service, or anyone, a professional, or who supports the courier or parcel service. I will go. I'll book for it. What will they do? Assume that I put some 100 milliliter of petrol into the bike. Normally they will drain it before transit. Assume that they don't drain it. Okay, they take the vehicle into the lorry, for instance. The vehicle travels for 400, 600 kilometers on the lorry or the parcel service van. At the receiver side, the vehicle is brought down. Okay, now how much petrol do I have? I have got still 100 ml. All right, what has happened? This packet has become, I'm sorry, this bike has become the payload for a lorry or the van. Okay, very similar to that. What are we doing when we take the IPv6? IPv6 datagram are carried as payload. Okay, think of IPv6 as a lorry. Okay, it has got the payload. Okay, and you got all your IPv6 packet, the complete IPv6 PDU is kept as the payload. Now IPv6 v4 takes it to the other side, and once it reaches the IPv6 router, IPv6 packet will get down and it will start its journey. All right, so this always I would compare with the ferry service in Kerala. So put people who are in Kerala, especially in the Cochin, I haven't seen in other place, but I had the privilege of using this ferry to transmit my car some 6 or 7 years back from one place to another place. All right, so you have got a lot of water paths, all right, waterways from one place to another place. You can see on the screen, right? People are getting ambassador car down from a ferry. So ferry is going to be some big boat. I'm sorry, Carolites, if I make any mistake, please correct me. But this is what I have observed at that time. Okay, you have got the banks of the river here, and maybe another 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer far, you got the other side of the river. All right. So in order to cross this river, this ferry service are used. All right. Now assume that these guys are all IPv6. Okay, they all can use IPv6, and this is all IPv6. Okay, this car and these people are all IPv6. They cannot travel over the water. Okay, what happens? You got the IPv4, because this place to another place they can use only IPv4 because the path is IPv4 network, water here. All right, so this carries this as the payload, reaches the other side and drops the vehicle, and then they will drive their way and home. Okay, you can see this ferry is leaving from one bank probably to reach this island here. All right, so this all are IPv6 packets. This ferry is IPv4 packet. This is a network of IPv4. Exactly, this waterways are IPv4. The either side of this river is IPv6. This is one of the top views. It may not be talking about the ferry, but I love visiting Kerala, especially for the boat house in Alappuzha and other places. All right, so if anyone of you haven't done it, people other than Kerala, please visit that at least once. It is really enjoying. It's a God's own country. Though I'm not from Kerala, but I love visiting Kerala then and there. All right, it's really a good place to visit. So God bless the people from Kerala for the excellent maintenance of all the tourist spot and other places. All right, so now you got the logic of ferry. So you got the IPv4 one side, take the IPv6 as the payload, take it up because IPv6 cannot swim, but IPv4 can swim in a simple logic. Drop it on the other side, it will make its way. This is called tunneling, right? Of course, tunneling has its own negative side. If you wanted to learn about tunneling, you can search wormhole routing, WORM, worm, HOLE, hole. Wormhole routing, that is a little dangerous, which exactly uses tunneling concept to bring down the network. Okay, that's different story. You can browse and learn more about that. All right, this is about your tunneling. Okay, so what exactly happened technically? All right, these are all IPv6 networks. You got IPv6 network, you got IPv4 network here. This is IPv6, this is IPv6, but it is IPv4, very similar to your waterway. Okay, now IPv6 travels, get into the ferry, so IPv4 takes it to the other side, drops there, then the IPv6 continues. Okay, this is what happening. So this is going to be a tunnel of IPv4 carrying the IPv6 packets. All right, so the problem here is you can ask a question, sir, why can't you convert the IPv6 into v4? Please remember, IPv4 is not having flow. The quality of service will be in trouble, and also the IP addresses have to be mapped. That is going to be a big headache. All right, so you got the IPv6 packet. You can see the whole of IPv6 packet becomes part of IPv4. It travels, and then this blue color packet gets down and make its way. Okay, this is what tunneling, and I wanted to share with you today. All right, so I stopped sharing. I also have completed my lecture today. Hope you really enjoyed it.